بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah ta'ala we'll start with the first hadith from 40 hadith by Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. In the first class we did an introduction, the importance of studying firstly these type of books, which are introductory books, or the first level book in the science of hadith is the 40 hadith of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And we spoke about Imam An-Nawawi and his level as far as scholarship by the people during his time and the people that came after his time, and how his books remain in circulation in the Muslim Ummah. And many of the ulama say that this is a sign of his sincerity, that his book remained. And there are many books that were written with 40 hadith, titled 40 hadith, but his remains to be one of the most famous. And the ulama say that this may be a sign, Allahu A'lam, that this may be a sign of the ikhlas that Imam An-Nawawi had, that's the sincerity that he had when he wrote the book. As he said in the introduction of the book, he mentioned many different books that came before him that were entitled 40 hadith, but those books were designated and focused on a specific issue: 40 hadith in aqidah, 40 hadith in fiqh, 40 hadith in zuhud. So what he did was he gathered 40 hadith that contained everything, not just designated or restricted to one science. And we also spoke about the hadith with the many narrations that mentions the virtue of the one who gathers 40 hadith, and that hadith is not authentic. That the hadith is not authentic. So he didn't write the book based on the inauthentic or the weak hadith, but he wrote 40 hadith based on the authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But he said, may Allah brighten the face of the one who gathers my hadith and he relays it to other people the way he heard it. And today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll start with the first hadith. And lastly, we mentioned that Imam An-Nawawi died when he was 45 years old. So he was young. He was fairly young, rahimahullah. But Allah put barakah in his time. Allah blessed him in his time that he lived. And he left behind a lot of different benefits for the Muslim Ummah. From his books, the explanation of Sahih Muslim, and the many books that he has in the Shafi'i madhab, regards to fiqh, and his books in hadith. So he has many works that he left behind. And we'll start with the first hadith, which is a famous hadith that we probably all know. But this hadith, as the ulama have said, this is Sunnah. As Al-Fatiha, as Al-Kitab Al-Fatiha, they describe this hadith as being Sunnah. As they say, the Sunnah is encompassed inside of this hadith. And it is also not said, but by action. The ulama of the past, many have started their books off with this same hadith. Sahih Bukhari begins with the same hadith. There are many books of hadith that start with the same hadith, which is An Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs Umar ibn al-Khattab رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. رواه إمام المحدثين أبو عبد الله محمد بن إسماعيل بن إبراهيم بن مغير بن معتزب البخاري وأبو الحسين مسلم ابن الحجاج بن مسلم القشيري النيسابوري في صحيحيهما اللذين هما أصح الكتب المصنفة. The first hadith is the hadith that we know famous, that deeds are by intentions, and everybody will get what they intended. طيب. Firstly, at the end of this hadith, as he does with the majority of the hadith, he keeps the chain short in the beginning, so he mentions the narrator, this one being Umar ibn Khattab. And at the end, who recorded the hadith? And he tried, for the majority, most of them are in Al-Bukhari wa Muslim. There's some from outside of Bukhari and Muslim, but most are inside of Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. So this first hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and their Sahih, which is considered, does anybody know if the hadith is in the Sahih of al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim? What is it called? Agreed upon. Jayd. Muttafiqun alayh. Muttafiqun alayh is agreed upon by Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. والمتفق عليه بين الإمامين البخاري ومسلم هو أصح الأحاديث في سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is the most authentic hadith. If the hadith is recorded in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, muttafiqun alayh is considered the most authentic hadith in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this hadith is one of the ahadith that is considered to be min jawami al-kalam. Jawami al-kalam, which is the comprehensive word, to say more or less, or lack of better translation, right? وكان يتكلم بكلمات يسيرة تجمع علوم غزيرة وخيرات كثيرة. With the Prophet ﷺ, he would speak with short sentences that contained heavy meanings. The meaning is expansive, but the wording may be very short. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ was given, Jawami al-Kalam. So this hadith is from those ahadith that are considered to be from Jawami al-Kalam. And this hadith is also, to show the level and the seriousness of this hadith is also from the ahadith that the ulama consider, some of the ulama consider to be from, as it says, أحد الأحاديث الأربع التي يدور عليها الإسلام. One of the four ahadith that Islam, all of the usul, the foundations of Islam, are contained in four ahadith. Some ulama say four. Some of them say all of the usul, the foundations of the religion, are contained in three ahadith. Some of them say they are contained in two ahadith. Right? This is one of the ahadith that they say the religion, all of the religion is contained in four ahadith. Right? The foundations are contained in four ahadith. This first hadith being one of them. Okay? This is the first one. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And the other three, the other four, the most of them, he brought them in this book. So you remember Noah, he tried to gather those ahadith that had those statements behind them. But the ulama say the religion is contained in four ahadith. So what the Imam Nawawi did, he took those four hadith and put them in Arba'in an-Nawawi. Some of them say the religion is contained in three ahadith. So he made sure those three hadith are in here. Some of them say two. He made sure those two are in here like that. So the first statement that is contained in four, this hadith being one of the four, and the other three we'll mention when they come. And they're also famous ahadith. One of them, that the halal is clear and the haram is clear. And the halal bayin and the haram bayin. And we'll deal with those when they come. But what he did was he put those ahadith that hold that weight, whether they're being 1/4 of Islam or 1/3 or 1/2, he made sure that they were in his 40 that he gathered, which are actually 42. It's actually 42, but it's called 40. طيب. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says firstly, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And this first word, إِنَّمَا, is what they call أداة الحصر. أداة الحصر. Which means there's a restriction to the word coming after it in the Arabic language. It makes ithbat of a hukm on something that comes after it, but not what comes before it. So whatever comes after innama, the ruling applies to it. But it doesn't necessarily include what's before it. So he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. That in English it says indeed, right? Usually it's translated as indeed. But that's loosely translated. That's a loose translation, right? Because inna and innama are different in Arabic. They have a different meaning. Even though we translate them into English as the same word. When we translate inna in English, it says indeed. We translate innama, it says indeed. Right? That's the importance of the Arabic language. That's the importance of the Arabic language, because there is a difference in the meaning that the word carries. There's a difference in the meaning that the two words carry. As this is called adat al-hasr. تثبت الحكم لما بعدها وتنفيه عما قبلها. It confirms that this ruling applies to whatever comes after it, and it removes the ruling from what came before. This is innama. This is not inna, this is innama. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ, meaning, or بِالنِّيَّات, يعني بِمَقَاصِدْ أَصْحَابِهَا. So first, we know النِّيَّات, right? We all know what النِّيَّات. What is النِّيَّات? Huh? Intention or intentions? Intentions, the jam, it's the plural. And the singular is النِّيَّة, النِّيَّة, النِّيَّة. So he used the plural, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is small stuff, but it's important. It's important. When you learn the Arabic language, it's the kalam the Prophet ﷺ said. As it said in the beginning of the Hadith, an Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar said, Sami'tu. Right? Sami'tu. And then it says in one of the explanations, Sami'tu shows that he took this straight from the mouth of the Prophet ﷺ. I heard, with my own ears, the messenger say this, alayhi salatu wasalam. Meaning, he didn't hear it from a second source. Not that it's not authentic if he heard it from a second source, but he heard it straight from the mouth of the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. So, an-niyya, and he says, an-niyya hiya al-qasdu fil qalb. An-niyya, the intention is, we say intention, but it's an intention that comes from the heart. It forms here in the heart. Right? The intention is formed in the heart. And the issue of pronouncing the intention comes a little later. He says, فَلَيْسَتْ إِبْرَةُ بِصُورَةِ الْعَمَلِ وَإِنَّمَا الْإِبْرَةُ بِنِيَّةِ الْعَامِلِ. So everything is not based on the picture, the surah. You can't base everything on the surah, the picture that you see. That's not the most important thing. It is important, but it's not the most important. What's even more important is the intention of the person doing the action. What's more important than the picture is the intention first of the person doing the action. Not that the picture, which you see, the action doesn't have any, doesn't hold any weight. The action is important. But even before the action, the intention has to be correct. He says, فَإِنْ كَانَ قَصْدُهُ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ صَارَ عَمَلُهُ لِلَّهِ. If a person's intention in the heart, if his intention in the heart was seeking Allah's reward, then that action is considered that he did it for Allah, as we say. Lillah, he did it for Allah, seeking Allah's reward. If the intention, not the picture that we see, right? We could use many examples. Whatever you want to think of, any type of worship that you can think of. Person making Hajj, Umrah, praying, reading Quran, is not necessarily what is seen from the people. But more importantly, before that, the intention of the person doing the action. وَإِنْ كَانَ قَصْدُهُ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ صَارَ عَمَلُهُ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. And if his action, or if his intention in the heart is formed in the heart for other than Allah, for whatever the reason may be. And there could be many reasons. Right? It could be many reasons that a person does a certain action. They can want attention. Right? Some people, Allah protect us all. Some people need attention. Allah protect us all. Some people need attention. Right? It could be for something from the dunya. They're trying to gain something from somebody. They're trying to win. It could be whatever the case may be. If the action is done and the intention in the heart was not seeking Allah's reward, then it's done li ghayrillah. It has been done for other than Allah. In this issue of the intention, as the intention has more than one job, we'll say, or it comes with more than one meaning. The intention comes with more than one meaning. Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, who has also an explanation, but his explanation is a lot more detailed. He might go maybe 60 or more pages on this one hadith. It's a lot more detailed. Jami' Ulum al-Hikam. Jami' Ulum al-Hikam. he mentions a portion in here about the intention. وَالنِّيَّةُ فِي كَلَامِ الْعُلَمَاءِ تَقْعَ بِمَعْنَيَيْنِ. The intention, when the ulama say the intention, it has two meanings. The intention has two different meanings. He says, أَحَدُهُمَا بِمَعْنَ تَمْيِيزِ الْعِبَادَاتِ بَعْضُهُ عَنْ بَعْضٍ. One meaning is that the intention is used to distinguish different acts of worship from one another. The intention is used, number one, to distinguish different actions of worship one from another. For example, Salatul Dhuhr is 4 rak'ah, right? Salatul Dhuhr is 4 rak'ah. Salatul Asr is 4 rak'ah, right? How do you know from looking at a person if they're praying Salatul Asr or Salatul Dhuhr? You can't tell. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know, right? You wouldn't know if a person is praying Salatul Dhuhr or Salatul Asr based on the surah, based on the picture, based on what we see. Based on what we see, we assume if it's the time for Dhuhr, he's praying Dhuhr, right? And we assume if a person comes in during the time of Asr, maybe he misses the Jama'ah, we assume he's praying Asr. But he could have just woke up in the house. He could come here to pray Dhuhr and Asr. You would never know by looking, right? For the person praying, what distinguishes his Dhuhr from his Asr if they're both 4 rak'ah? His intention, which is in the heart. He stands here and he makes his intention in his heart to pray whatever salat he's going to pray. That's one thing that the intention does. It distinguishes two things with regards to worship. Just like we come for Salatul Fajr. The rak'ah, 2 rak'ah before Fajr, right? And Salatul Fajr is 2 rak'ah. How do we know the person comes in and he doesn't pray Fajr by himself? You don't know. You know he prayed 2 rak'ah. We assume he prayed 2 rak'ah for entering the masjid, or we assume he prayed 2 rak'ah to the Fajr. Right? He does his tamyiz, he distinguishes himself or herself based on their intention. That we would never know unless they came out openly and said, well, I did this. When I did this before the salat. Right? So one job of the intention, one thing the niyyah does, it distinguishes between two forms of worship that may have the same picture. They may look exactly the same, but what separates them is the intention of the person doing the ibadah, doing the worship. And he says here, come to me use Salatul Dhuhr and Salatul Asr. Tayyib. The same could be said for Ramadan. Fasting. Right? We see a brother fasting or a sister's fasting, Yom al-Ithnain, fasting on Monday. We would assume, a person assumes they're fasting, right? Sunnah fast. Sunnah to fast on Mondays and Thursdays, right? The brother's fasting on Mondays and Thursdays. It's not Ramadan. We assume that they're fasting a sunnah, a voluntary fast, when they could be making up an obligatory fast from Ramadan, from the previous Ramadan. It's possible. But they chose to fast them on Mondays and Thursdays, right? What distinguishes if they're fasting Ramadan, qada'an, that he missed last year, or if they're fasting the sunnah, which is the fast Monday and Thursdays? The intention. So the picture is the same from the outside, but we will never be able to see the inside anyway. So that's upon the person. The person has to distinguish with their intention between different forms of worship that may look the same. Tayyib. Now Ibn Rajab, he brings, rahimahullah, the second thing. وَتَمْيِيزُ الْعِبَادَاتِ عَنِ الْعَادَاتِ. The intention also distinguishes something that is a customary practice from something that is actual worship. Right? Something that a person just does they just used to doing it. Something they do every day. Right? It could have the same surah. It could look the same as a form of worship. Does anybody know an example? Something a person may do every day, and it may look like exactly like a form of worship that we do.
Talking about zikr or
Something that is not worship, but it looks like worship. Yeah.
Taking a bath
Jay.
every day and then on Friday, that bath is specifically for Juma versus your normal taking a bath.
Exactly. That's the example that he uses. A person takes a bath, right? As he says, كَتَمْيِيز الغسل من الجنابة. A person is intimate with his wife, or the wife is intimate with her husband, so they have to make ghusl, right? Ghusl. But a person may make ghusl every day, just maybe in the summer it's hot. They go in the house in the middle of the day and they make a ghusl, right? Not from janaba, just because it's hot, tabarruk, to cool off. Person takes a bath to cool off, and a person is taking a bath for al-janaba, right? It could look exactly the same. But what distinguishes the two? The intention. So the bath for cooling off is considered an aida. It's just a custom. It's not worship. It's just something that we do every day. Customary practice. Washing up is not necessarily worship, right? But when they they take the ghusl for janaba, they might do the same exact thing. But what distinguishes the two is the intention. And that's the other job of the intention. It distinguishes worship from worship, and it distinguishes worship from a customary practice, or something that a person just does normally, just out of habit. Habitual practices and worship are two different things. Tayyib. He says, so this niyyah, this type of niyyah, Ibn Rajab says, وَهَذِهِ النِّيَّةِ هِيَ الَّتِي تُوجَدُ كَثِيرًا فِي كَلَامِ الْفُقَهَاءِ فِي كُتُبِهِمْ. When you talk about the books of fiqh, they talk about this type of intention, this niyyah. And they say niyyah, talking about a person has to have their niyyah, their intention to pray. They're talking about this one, right? If you're praying 2 rak'ah, are you praying fajr, or are you praying sunnah for fajr? Are you praying 2 rak'ah for entering the masjid, or are you praying 2 rak'ah salat al-fajr? Whatever the case may be. Are you praying 4 rak'ah sunnah for dhuhr, or are you praying salat al-dhuhr? They're both 4 rak'ah, right? Are you fasting Ramadan, or are you fasting? So it distinguishes between 2 acts of worship, and it distinguishes between a normal or aida. Some people, they just don't eat. They make it a habit not to eat until the sun goes down, trying to lose weight, right? Trying to lose weight. They're not fasting, seeking Allah's reward. They may say, you know what, at least 3 times a week, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to eat early in the morning, I'm not going to eat till sundown. Right? They don't make an intention to fast, seeking Allah's reward. They just make it an intention just to, the intention is what it is. Right? So it separates from customary practices and worship. This is the first group. The second group, the second thing that the intention is used for, he says, بِمَعْنَ تَمْيِيزَ الْمَقْصُودِ بِالْعَمَلِ. And this comes in other books, not in the books of fiqh, but this comes in the books of aqidah. An-niyyah. When they talk about an-niyyah in the books of aqidah, they're talking about هَلْ هُوَ لِلَّهِ وَحْدَهُ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. That a person, was their niyyah sincerely for Allah? The books of aqidah. They say, hey, the intention wasn't correct. Meaning what? They didn't do the action seeking Allah's reward. They did it for other than Allah. Right? Or they did it for Allah and other than Allah. They mixed it. Point being, it wasn't for Allah alone. And he says this comes in the books of Aqidah, when they're talking about ikhlas. So sometimes the word intention is used for ikhlas. And sometimes the word intention is used for the other one. Distinguishing between 2 acts of worship, or distinguishing between a customary habitual practice and an act of worship. Tayyib. So he goes on now, and when the Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, al-a'mal. Is this all actions? Is this all actions? Or is it only certain type of actions? All actions. Jade. Some of the ulama have restricted this to only acts of worship. Some of them have said yes, all actions are included. Some say la. The actions that are being referred to are the acts of worship. the acts of ibadah. As he says here, فَالْمَرَادُ بِالْأَعْمَالِ هُنَا الْعِبَادَات. What is intended in this hadith are the actions of worship. Why? أما الأعمال الدنيوية فهذه لا تحتاج إلى نية. Right? The regular actions that are not worship don't need an intention. Right? For example, مثل أن يأكل أو يشرب أو يلبس ثيابه أو يركب سيارته. Eating. A person doesn't need an intention to eat. Right? You don't have to make an intention to drink water. I'm not talking about saying Bismillah. I'm talking about intention. Do you have to make an intention to drink water? These are adis. Right? These things don't need intentions. Right? But what do the things that need intentions are the worship, acts of worship. So he says, Al-Maqsood bil-A'mal, A'mal al-Ta'at. Those things are considered worship and obedience to Allah Jalla wa Ala. So the next issue is the statement that comes after that. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, which is, indeed, all actions are done with intentions. And then the Prophet ﷺ came back and said, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ. And indeed, every person gets what they intended. Right? طيب. Sounds like the two sentences have the same meaning, more or less. Right? All deeds are by intentions. Every person gets what they intended. Do you hear a difference or not? All deeds are done with intentions. Every person will get what they intended. They're different. And this is another issue. Some say that it's the same, has the same meaning. Some say no, there's a different meaning to the second one. The second one has a different meaning. And they say it's better. This is better to say that it has a second meaning. They say that it's better to say that it has a second meaning. If not, it's repetitive. They use a principle that says, as he mentions, حمل الكلام على التأسيس أولى من حمله على التأكيد. That a statement to have an original foundation in its meaning, it's better to carry it on an original meaning than to carry it as just something emphasizing something that came before it. It's better to say that it has its own meaning than to just say, no, he's just emphasizing what he said before that. This is a principle that is used. So now, how do you make a combination between, because there is an argument. There's an argument that says, no, they have the same meaning. Some of them say this. So they say, no, the first sentence, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, they say this is regarding to صِحَّةً وَفَسَادًا. Meaning, a person's action is done according to his intention, and that action is either correct or incorrect. The action is correct or incorrect according to his intention, or her intention. The second sentence, وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَىٰ, they say this is referring to the reward given. The reward given. Every person will get what they intended, meaning the reward that they receive. So the first sentence is saying all actions are by intentions, meaning all actions are either correct or incorrect based on intentions. The second sentence is saying, and every person will get what they intended. Every person will receive their reward based on their intention. So they say thawab. The second sentence is regarding to the ajr, the reward that is getting that a person will receive, and the first refers to correctness. Is the action correct or not? Firstly, is the action correct or not? Secondly, what will the person receive for reward? If the action is correct, they receive this. If the action is incorrect, then they receive a different reward. طيب. Next, he brings a hadith, which is a long hadith. I'll just summarize it. And this hadith is about the three men. Inna awwal an-nas yuqda fihi yawm al-qiyamah thalatha. About the three people. And the point of the hadith is to show the importance of the intention, and that everything is not based on what is seen. And we shouldn't be delusional. We shouldn't be delusional thinking. We have to be conscious of our intentions, especially when we're doing our worship. We have to be conscious of our intentions. Where the Prophet ﷺ said 3 men will be brought. The first 3 people to be trialed Yawm al-Qiyamah, to be held accountable Yawm al-Qiyamah, will be 3 people. The first person, rajulun istushhida, the man who died fighting in the war. He died fighting a war, and that's what everybody saw. He went to war, he went to fight in the path, and he died. A martyr. He died in the war, right? So it said this man will be brought Yawm al-Qiyamah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It says, he will say, قَاتَلْتُ فِيكَ حَتَّى قُتِلْتُ. He said, I fought in your path until I was killed. This is what the man will say. I fought in your path in order to make the religion stronger. I fought in your path until I was killed. It will be said to him, كَذَبْتَ, you lied. وَلَكِنَّكَ قَاتَلْتَ لِيُقَالْ هُوَ جَرِيهٌ فَقَدْ قِيلَ. He said, you lied. But you fought so that the people would say you were brave. And that's what they said. And that's exactly what they said. The Prophet ﷺ said, فَقَدْ قِيلَ. And that's what was said about you. ثُمَّ أُمِرَ بِهِ فَيُسْحَبُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ حَتَّى أُلْقِيَ فِي النَّارِ. He said, until he will be commanded, it will be commanded and he will be dragged on his face until he is thrown in the hellfire. Why was he thrown in the hellfire? According to the picture, according to what people saw, according to the dhahir, how he was fighting in the path. But لِأَنَّ نِيَّتَهُ لَيْسَتْ لِلَّهِ. He didn't do that seeking Allah's reward. But he did it seeking something other than that. وَإِنَّمَا نِيَّتُهُ أَن يُمْدَحَ بِالْجَرَاءَةِ وَالشَّجَاعَةِ. But he did it, he fought that fight, that battle, so that the people could praise him. He fought for praise. So that he could be praised and people could say he was courageous and he had courage and he was that type of person. The second man, the Prophet ﷺ said, وَرَجُلٌ تَعَلَّمَ الْعِلْمَ وَعَلَّمَهُ وَقَرَأَ الْقُرْآنِ. The second type of person, the person who learned. They learned and they taught people. And he also said the person who read the Quran. The first man will say, he will say, تَعَلَّمْتُ فِيكَ الْعِلْمُ وَعَلَّمْتُ. He said, I learned seeking your reward. And I taught the people seeking your reward. And the second man will say, وَقَرَأْتُ فِيكَ الْقُرْآنِ. And I read the Quran seeking your reward. لِلَّهِ. فَقَالَ كَذَبْتَ. It will be say you lied. كَذَبْتَ. وَلَكِنَّكَ تَعَلَّمْتَ لِيُقَالْ هُوَ عَالِمٌ. You only learned so that people could say you were knowledgeable. فَقَدْ قِيلَ. And that's what they said about you. You were knowledgeable. وَقَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنِ لِيُقَالْ هُوَ قَارِئٌ. And you read the Quran so that the people could say he's a good reciter. He's a qari Quran. So that the people could say he was a reciter. فَقَدْ قِيلَ. And it was said. That would be said. And that's what was said about him. He said, ثُمَّ أُمِرَ بِهِ فَيُسْحَبُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ حَتَّى أُلْقِيَ فِي النَّارِ. And the same thing. The command will go out and he will be dragged into the hellfire on his face and thrown into the hellfire on his face. Shows the importance of the intention even when we're sitting here doing this. That we have to make sure that we correct our intention and that we're not learning in order to step on people. In order to step on people. But we're not learning in order to show off. We're not learning in order to put ourselves above others. That we learn in seeking Allah's reward to remove ignorance from ourselves. To remove ignorance from ourselves firstly. طيب. The Prophet ﷺ said, the last man وَالرَّجُلٌ وَسَّعَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَعَطَّاهُ مِنْ أَصْنَافِ الْمَالِ كُلِّهِ. A man, he was given a lot of wealth. The man who was given a lot of wealth, this is the third person who will be from the first 3 judges Yawm al-Qiyamah. And he said that he basically didn't leave any pathway that was pleasing to Allah except that he gave sadaqah. Every way that you can think about that is pleasing to Allah to give sadaqah, that he gave it. قَالَ كَذَبْتَ. So you lied. وَلَكِنَّكَ فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ لِيُقَالَ هُوَ جَوَادٌ. هُوَ الجَوَادُ. You lied, but you only gave that sadaqah like that. You gave that money away so that the people could say about you that you were generous, that you were a generous person. Then he said, فَقَدْ قِيلْ ثُمَّ أُمِرَ بِهِ فَيُسْحَبُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ حَتَّى أُلْقِيَ فِي النَّارِ. And then the same thing, he will be commanded. The command will go out and he will be dragged on his face until he is thrown in the hellfire. Until he is thrown in the hellfire. Showing the importance of the intention. Everything is not based on the surah, what the picture looks like. And Ibn Rajab brings in his explanation of the same hadith, many narrations to show how the Salaf, how serious they took the intention. How serious they took the intention. So he brings one on Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah. Sufyan al-Thawri. These are imams of the Sunnah. Imams of the Sunnah that show how serious they were. They were people of knowledge. They were people of knowledge and people of worship. They weren't just people, they were people of worship. Praying at night, fasting, hajj, umrah, sadaqah. They were people of worship. They weren't just people talking. They weren't just people memorizing. They did all of that and they did worship. Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah. قال ما علجت شيئا أشد علي من نيتي لأنها تتقلب علي. He said, I didn't deal with anything more difficult. There was nothing more difficult that I had to deal with than my intention. Why? He said, because it keeps changing. And this is a person of knowledge. The most difficult thing that he had to deal with was making sure his intention was correct. He said, because my intention changes from this situation to that situation. He says, عن مطرف ابن عبد الله صلاح القلب قال صلاح القلب بصلاح العمل. He said, a person corrects their heart. A person is able to correct their heart by firstly correcting their actions. They correct their heart by firstly correcting their actions. وصلاح العمل بصلاح النية. He said a person corrects their actions by correcting their intention. By correcting the intention first. If we caught up on the sort of the picture, what it looks like, a person could be praying and they could be praying to other than Allah. Right? A person could be praying to other than Allah. If we're basing everything on the picture, the outside, the apparent. Not to say that that's not important, but before that, the intention has to be correct. He says, عن ابن المبارك Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak قال رب عمل صغيرا تعظمه النية. He said it's possible that it could be a small action. A small action is magnified and made serious, holds a lot of weight based on a person's intention. A small action. Then he said the opposite. رب عمل كبيرا تصغره النية. And it could be a major action that we watch a person do. We see somebody do something and we say, subhanallah. But it's possible that action is diminished and it holds no weight based on the intention. Abdullah ibn Mubarak. قال ابن عجلان لا يصلح العمل إلا بثلاث. He said the action is not correct except that three things are present. He said, number one, at-taqwa lillah. The person has the fear of Allah. They're conscious of Allah Jalla wa'ala. Number two, wa-niyya hasana. And that the niyyah, the intention is there. The intention is correct. That they're doing it seeking Allah's reward, not for people to praise Him. He says, number three, wal-ithaba. That a person does the action according to the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is how they were. There are many. There are whole books with these type of narrations. Books just filled with chapters and chapters about ikhlas. How serious the imams of the Salaf were when it came to ikhlas, being sincere. Being sincere. Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said, وَدَدْتُ أَنَّ الْخَلْقَ تَعَلَّمُوا مِنِّي هَذَا الْعِلْمِ عَلَى أَنْ لَا يُنْسَبْ إِلَيَّ حَرْفٌ مِنْهُ. He said, I wish that the people could learn. See, Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. Imam al-Shafi'i. He said, I wish the people could learn this knowledge from me, and at the same time, they wouldn't attribute any of this knowledge to me. That they learned the knowledge, but it wasn't attributed that they got it from me. I wish the people could learn this knowledge, but that they didn't have to attribute that they got it from Imam al-Shafi'i. Allah musta'an. Allah protect us. They didn't even want the responsibility of people pointing the finger. That's Fulan. Even the Sahaba before them. When the people would come to ask questions, the famous stories, they came to ask fatwa, the Sahaba would say, ask the next one, ask the next one, ask the next, till it went around the whole circle and came back to the first person. That's how the Sahaba did. And the Imams who followed the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ, they followed them, they followed the same type of, the mentality was the same. Now, Allah musta'an. We can't wait for somebody to answer the question. We mad if they don't ask us. Why you ask him? I've been Muslim longer than him. Why would you ask him? Right? Sahaba didn't even want to answer the question. Ask him. He tells them, ask him. He passes it along till it comes all the way back around to the same person. Imam Shafi'i said, I wish that the people could learn this ilm minni ala an la yunsab ilayya harfun minhu. And that they didn't even have to say that they got one letter of it from me. And there's a bunch of narrations like that. But those are some that Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, he brought under the chapter, or under that first portion about the intention. Tayyib. In the next part of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he used an example. He used an example of where the picture is the same, but the intention is different. And the ulama say that it's not restricted to the sort of that, or the example that the Prophet ﷺ used. He used al-hijrah, making hijrah. Right? We all know hijrah, right? Huh? Hijrah is what? Migration from the land of disbelief to the land of the Muslims. Is it still hijrah? Does hijrah still remain? Huh? باقية طيب. الانتقام من بلد الكفر إلى بلد الإسلام. فرارا بالدين. فرارا بالدين. That a person moves. They're trying to save their religion. And they move to the land of the Muslims in order to save and preserve their religion. So it's a serious action. That's not like something light. Like the Sahaba, they moved, left everything. Made hijrah to Medina. We're talking about leaving jobs, family, some kids, right? Leaving everything in order to flee, to save and make sure that they can practice Islam the way they're supposed to. A person leaves everything. It's not a light thing. Al-hijrah. As Allah said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا. And He says, Allah, in the ayah, He mentioned the muhajirin before He mentioned those who fought with them, before the ansar. Because hijrah, that they leave their country. They leave what is most known to them. You leave everything you know to go to a foreign place, to a bunch of people you don't know. Leave all your family, all your money, all your everything behind, and you go in order to save and preserve a person's religion, their own religion. So the Prophet ﷺ uses this example. He says, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. And this is the first type, the first picture. The two pictures, both people made hijrah. Both people made hijrah. The first one, the Prophet ﷺ said that his hijrah, their migration, was for Allah and His Messenger. He says, الَّذِي أَخْلَصَ نِيَّتَهُ لِلَّهِ فِي الْهِجْرَةِ وَاتَّقَبَّلَ اللَّهِ هِجْرَتَهُ وَكَتَبَهُ في المهاجرين في أي وقت كان. He left, he made his intention sincerely to leave, to save and preserve his religion, and that's what he did. That's why he left. And Allah accepts that type of migration, and he's written down as a muhajir, as a person who migrated. The second type of person, وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, he says, وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا. In some of the explanations, they say, for a portion of the dunya, right? Some of the explanations, they say, this person is the tajir, he's a merchant. There was some benefit there. There was some benefit in the Muslim country that if they go there, there's some monetary, there's some money, right? So that's why they make hijrah, or what they call hijrah. They say, I'm making hijrah. But what the people see is they're making hijrah. What the intention was, right? There's some money there. There's some money there that I can't pass up. And that's what he says here. إنما قصده أن بلاد المسلمين فيها طمع وفيها دنيا وفيها تجارة. There was some tijara. There was some business there that they wanted to go there for. Right? He says, فَهِجْرَتُهُ لِلدُّنْيَا وَلَيْسَتْ لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَ. The person who does that, right? They moved, they migrated, not lillah, they migrated for that business that they went there for. He says, وَلَا يُكْتَبُ لَهُ ثَوَابُ الْمُهَاجِرِ. This person is not written down as being a person who migrated. They're not written down as a person who migrated. Right? Can they go there? They can go there. They can go there, they can do business, they can do all of that. Are they written down as a muhajir? La, because they didn't leave with the intention of a muhajir. Even though the zahir was apparent to us, was apparent to the people looking, is that they left in order to make hijrah. Right? But what they did was they went on a business excursion, which is permissible to go on a business excursion, but is it the same? Is going on a business excursion the same as the person who leaves everything trying to save their religion? It's not the same. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا. The second person, they say he was trying to get married. Right? He moved to the land of the Muslims in order to get married. Why? And he gives an example here. He says, وَهِيَ لَا تُرِيدُهُ إِلَّا إِذَا جَاءَ إِلَى بِلَادِهَا. The woman doesn't want to marry him unless he comes to her country. Right? She said, I'm not coming to America. You got to come here. If you come here, I'll marry you. So he packs up and he moves. Right? He went there for a specific reason. The intention was for marriage. It wasn't to make hijrah lillah firadan, at least trying to save his religion. He says, فَهَاجَرَ إِلَى بِلَادِ الْإِسْلَامِ لِأَجْلِ أَنْ يَتَزَوَّجَهَا. So he moved to the land of the Muslims in order to marry the woman. فَهَذَا لَيْسَ لَهُ ثَوَابُ الْمُهَاجِرِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. So this person, can he do that? Is it allowed? You can do that. You can go there and marry whoever you want to marry. Do they get the same reward as the one who migrated? For Allah's reward is not the same. So he said that person doesn't get the reward of the muhajir. They don't get the reward of the person who left seeking to save his religion and seeking Allah's reward. It's not the same. He left for a specific reason, and everybody gets the reward that they intended. He left to marry a woman, he can leave and marry a woman. So he go and he marries the woman. The man left to go or to do business, he can go do business. But it's not the same as the person, and the reward is not the same as the muhajir. He says, وَالنِّيَّةُ مَحَلُّهَا الْقَلْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. The place where the intention is formed is the heart. And nobody knows a person's intentions except for Allah. طيب? That's basic. 101. But for some reason we think we know what people intend when they do stuff. I know exactly why he did it. He did that because of this. So, well, did you speak to him? No, I don't have to speak to him. I don't need to speak to him. I know why he did it. I know why she did it. You might want to ask him. No, I don't need to ask him. Right? The intention is formed in the heart. Unless you have serious signs showing something else, the intention, the asl of the intention is in the heart. When we stand to make the salat, we build the intention in the heart from the house. I gotta make wudu. Why? Maghrib's coming. I gotta get to the masjid to pray Maghrib. Intention is already built in the heart. And that's why they say talaffud, to speak the intention out, is bid'ah, innovation. Who walks around through the house and says, makes the intention for everything? We don't need to. It's not needed. And that's the next thing he mentions. وَالتَّلَفُّظ بِهَا بِدْعَةٌ فَلَا يَقُولُ مُسْلِمٌ نَوَيْتُ أَنْ أُصَلِّي. I intended to pray, or نَوَيْتُ أَنْ أَحُجْ, I intend to make hajj, and speak out all of their intentions. He says what? The action, وَهِيَ عَمَلٌ قَلْبِيٌّ وَلَيْسَتْ عَمَلٌ لِسَانٍ. It's the action of the heart, not an action of the tongue. The intention is built in the heart. And then he also says, وَفِي الْمُجَاهَرَةِ بِهَا رِيَاءٌ. It's possible when a person is making their intention out loud like that they fall into showing off. That they might want to raise their voice a little bit to let the people hear what they're going to do. I intend to pray 2 extra sunnah rak'ah, seeking Allah's, whatever, seeking Allah's reward, Yawm al-Qiyamah. Or whatever person, they might embellish. A person might embellish the niyyah if it's somebody standing next to him. You never know. The shaitan, his job is to divert us from the tawheed. That's his job, to divert us from being sincere to Allah Jalla wa Ala. So it could be that you're trying to do something sincere, but it might pull you away. And he says from that, it's possible that a person can fall into riyah. He said, وَلَمْ يَثْبُتْ أَنَّ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ تَلَفَّظَ بِنِيَّةٍ عِنْدَمَا يُرِيدُ الصَّلَاةِ. So there's nothing authentic saying that the Prophet ﷺ would pronounce his intention with his tongue when he wanted to pray. Or if he wanted to do any action. There's nothing thabit confirming that he would stand up to make the salah and pronounce his intention on his tongue or any other action. When it comes to Hajj, they say there's a specific text for Hajj and Umrah, for the labbaik and Hajj and Umrah. We have a specific text for that. Outside of that, there are no nusus, there are no other texts. And he even says that's not even considered a talaffuz. He's pronouncing what he's intending to do. Point being, the nusus, the texts don't point, they don't show that the Prophet ﷺ would do his worship like that. And if you use the Hajj or the situation for Hajj, they say that's specific for that specific instance. And some of them say that's not even talaffuz, they explain it different. Tayyib. He says, Tayyib. Well, what about the people who say, well, Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, Imam al-Shafi'i said that you can make intentions with your tongue. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah. Tayyib. Number one, he says, وَإِنْ كَانُوا يَنْسِبُونَ إِلَى الْإِمَامِ الشَّافِعِي رحمه الله أنه قال بالتلفظ بالنية فهذا مردود من وجهين. He said, even if a person comes and they say, well, Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said you can make your intention on your tongue. Right? That's what they say. So people come, they say, well, you saying that, but Imam al-Shafi'i said it's permissible. He said this statement is rejected from two different angles. Number one, أولا هذا لم يصح عن الإمام الشافعي. Number one, it's not authentically reported on Imam al-Shafi'i. The narration connected to Imam al-Shafi'i is not authentic. Number two, he says, وَلَوْ صَحَّ عَنَ الْإِمَامِ الشَّافِعِي فَلَيْسَ حُجَّةً. And this is important. Even if it was authentic on Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam al-Shafi'i himself, rahimahullah, is not a proof in Islam. His statement itself is not a hujjah. Statement of an alim, scholar, is not a proof. Muhim, this is a problem. This is a problem now that we have today. We think the kalam of a sheikh is dalil. Right? Imam al-Shafi'i's statement is not a proof. What about anybody coming after Imam al-Shafi'i? He says, لِأَنَّ الْإِمَامَ الشَّافِعِي مُجْتَهِدٌ. Imam al-Shafi'i was a mujtahid, which is a high level of scholarship. He was a mujtahid. He had the ability to look at dalil and extract rulings and benefits, and this is halal, he can look at the ayat, this is halal, this is haram. He's a mujtahid, like many ulama are. He says, but al-mujtahid yukhti wa yusib. The mujtahid is correct sometimes, and he's incorrect sometimes, as it comes in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. If he's correct, the Prophet ﷺ said, if he's correct, he can be wrong. He can be wrong. The alim can make a mistake. If he's correct, he gets 2 rewards. And if he's wrong, he gets 1, which shows from our Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, the alim could be wrong. We can't raise scholars to the level of anbiya. That's not the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That's not how the Sahaba. That's not what they taught. That's not what they learned. He says, number one, if it's authentic on Imam al-Shafi'i, Imam al-Shafi'i is not a hujjah. Number one. Why? He's a mujtahid. And the ulama, it's possible. And this is not a knock. It's not a knock on scholars. It's not a knock on. This is the reality. The mujtahid, as it comes in the hadith, if he's right, he gets 2 rewards. If he's wrong, he gets 1. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, was a mujtahid. He said, a mujtahid, yukhti wa yusib. Wal hujjah fi kalam al-Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. The proof, the evidence is contained in the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The deen is contained within the kitab, the sunnah of the Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam. He says, La fi kalam al-Shafi'i. Dalil is not the kalam of Imam al-Shafi'i. His statement is not a dalil. Not just Imam al-Shafi'i. Wala Ahmed. Not Imam Ahmed either. ولا أبي حنيفة ولا مالك رحمهم الله. And this is not a knock on these great imams. This is a reality that the Muslim has to understand. We follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Quran, Dalil is Quran, Sunnah, Ijma' of the Ummah. And then the Dalil that comes after that, Qiyas, and the stuff that comes after that, the ulama differs. A difference if it's Dalil or not. You gotta understand this. In the books of Usul al-Fiqh, if the statement of a Sahaba, Dalil or not a Dalil? Is the statement of a Sahaba considered Dalil? Statement of Abu Hurairah. Dalil? Ibn Abbas, Omar, Abu Bakr, Ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar. Statement of a Sahaba, Dalil or la? طيب. Shaykh? Nah. It is. Statement of Sahaba is Dalil to some of the ulama, not to everybody. All of the ulama don't consider the statement of a Sahaba Dalil. Khilaf. Some say statement of Sahaba, some say nah. Comes in the chapter of the Dalil that the ulama differ on. The Dalil that they differ on, if it's Dalil or not, comes Qawl al-Sahaba. طيب. If the statement of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu and Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhuma, if they're not Dalil, why do we think anybody coming after the Sahaba will have more right to their statement, hold more weight than the Sahabi? The Sahaba statements are not even Dalil to some of the ulama. It's khilaf, they differ. If this Sahaba says something, do we just take it? Well, he said it. This Sahaba said it. طيب. We got a hadith saying the opposite. Shisowi. Take the statement of the Sahaba over the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. If we're not going to take a Sahaba statement over the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, how are we going to take a scholar 1,000 years later or 500 years later over a clear hadith, authentic hadith? And that's the point being made. That's what he means by the statement is not a hujjah. It's not a knock. And it's not disrespect to those imams, the imams of the past. That's not the issue here. The issue is what is proof and what's not proof. Even if you say that the statement of that person is not an Islamic dalil, evidence. That's not an evidence in that Islam. With all due respect. No respect intended, no disrespect intended. But what is dalil? That has to be understood. Dalil is Quran, Sunnah, Ijma', Qiyas. Anything after that is khilaf in it. Statement of Sahaba dalil, not to everybody. Is this qaida dalil? Not to everybody. Right? And that's the point of him mentioning that Imam Shafi'i's statement is not a hujjah. No disrespect to Imam Shafi'i. Or the other imams, Imam Ahmad, Imam Abu Hanif. No disrespect or any other ulama. That's not the point. The point is what is dalil and what's not. If a scholar says something that may go against the reality of the situation, and they all said the same thing. All of the four imams said the same thing. If you find something that I said that go against the sunnah, then throw away what I said. They all said that. There's nothing new. They all said that. So he says here that وَلَا يَكُونُ قَوْلُ عَالِمٍ حُجَّةً إِلَّا إِذَا وَافَقَ الدَّلِيلِ. The statement of a scholar is not a dalil. He said it's not a proof except if it agrees with the dalil. If his statement agrees with the dalil, then okay, we accept it. This is for anybody. If a person's statement agrees with what Allah said in the Quran, we accept it. If he contradicts what Allah said in the Quran, we don't accept it. If it agrees with the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, we accept it. If not, then not. Authentic hadith from our Prophet ﷺ against the statement of a person who goes totally in contrast. What takes precedence? The Quran and the Sunnah and the Ijma'. And that's a whole nother discussion of what is dalil and what's not dalil. Point being, right now at this point, if the statement of a Sahaba is not dalil, then what? Anybody coming after them, who would have more right? Who has more right to that statement being a proof? Abu Hurairah or somebody who came 500 years after Abu Hurairah? Right? Aqli, logically. A Sahaba will have more right of his statement being the dalil than anyone coming after him. So he ends with the statement of, and that came under the issue of the niyyah being pronounced with the tongue. He brought that under the niyyah being pronounced with the tongue. Why? Because there's no evidence pointing that you pronounce the niyyah with the tongue. So some people may come and say, and that's why he mentioned it, because you may hear somebody say, well, Imam Shafi'i said you can do it. Right? That's the point of mentioning it. Imam Shafi'i said you can do it. He did. Well, number one, as he says, that narration on Imam Shafi'i is not authentic that he said that. Number two, if it is authentic, his statement itself doesn't override the actions in the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the issue. The statement of a scholar doesn't override the statement of the Rasul ﷺ. And that's the final issue dealing with the niyyah. He said, ثالثا الذي روي عن الشافعي أنه قال الصلاة ليست كغيرها الصلاة لا يدخل فيها إلا بذكر الله والمراد بذكر التكبير. He says even the people who are going into the issue, but that's not important. Same al-muhim. He ends with that about the niyyah being pronounced on the tongue, and that's the end of the first hadith that we famously know as deeds or by intentions. And if anybody is able to memorize these hadith, I encourage you to memorize them. As Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr in his introduction showed the importance of these hadith. I think I mentioned this last week. He said there was a man who came and sat in the class. When the man sat in the class, see, the man came late. So when he came late to the class, they had already memorized 7 hadith. Salam to Allah. So he told the man, if you want to stay, you got to memorize the first 7 hadith. He memorized it. When they finished, he said the same man came to him. He said, I want to tell you something. He said, what? He said, I feel like I'm a scholar now. He said, why? He said, because I live with a bunch of people. Anytime something comes up, anytime we have an issue, I can correct the issue with a hadith. And I know who narrated it. I know the one who narrated, the Sahaba who narrated, and I know what book it's recorded in. Every time we have a problem, I got a hadith from these 40 hadith. So anytime something come up, I have a hadith that I can correct it with. I know who narrated and where the hadith is recorded at. Bukhari, Muslim, At-Tirmidhi. He said, Lala, Shaykh said, Lala, you're not a scholar, but this is the beginning. This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the journey. And he said one time, he said he was in Africa. He didn't mention what part. He said, I went to Africa to give dawah. He said, when I got there, I asked the people, that set it up, what's some of the problems that are going on in the area? Aqidah, belief, household, domestic problems, anything. What problems you got going on? They told him the problems. He said every problem they brought, he was able to deal with every problem. Aqidatan, fiqh, worship, household issues. He said I was able to deal with every issue based on these 40 hadith. Everything. Show you the level of the information contained. And this is a sharh. The book by itself is just 42 hadith. But what's contained in them is what makes the book so powerful. He said he was able to correct every issue that they brought to him while he was there. He was able to correct it min khilal, from using these 40 hadith, which shows the level and the status of them. So if you're able to, I would encourage everybody to memorize them, because we're not here again for another 7 days. Most of the hadith are short. Most. The next hadith is a little longer. The second hadith is a little longer. It's one of the longer ones. It may be the longest. It's only about 3, maybe 2 or 3 long hadith, maybe 3 or 4 that are long. The rest are pretty short, like this one, in the A'mal bin-Niyat. So they're doable, especially over a 7-day period, if we use our time correctly. If we use our time and we guard our time, inshallah ta'ala, we can, if you haven't memorized them, you can memorize them. If you already memorized them, the review is what keeps knowledge. Any questions?
2 in 1. So the first, the hadith started by saying, so the question is, Hafs, is it referring to Hafsa, the wife of the Prophet? That's number 1. And then number 2, Hijrah, as you mentioned, is still a practice that we need to do if we find ourselves so we can watch it. Now, the Hijrah is saying from Balad al-Kufr ila Balad al-Islam. Now, can we have Hijrah internally where I'm in New York and neighborhood is out there, and I visited Philly, and I saw that subhanAllah, brothers and brotherhood, and I think based on the Saajid I can practice and my kids will be exposed to Islam more so here, and I say, you know what, I'm making hijrah from New York into here, or does it
Allahu A'lam.
from one country to another?
Allahu A'lam. Hijrah from, hijrah, the definition generally is from the land of Kufr to the land of the Muslims. Hijrah. Not to say a person can't move to a better area that's lighter, still in the land of disbelief, but it may be a better situation. Do they still get the reward of being a muhajir? A person made hijrah? Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam. As far as Abu Hafs, Umar, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it's referring to Hafs. And even in some of the explanations at this point, if I'm not mistaken, it's where you have some of the Sahaba, they have kunya, but they don't have children by those names. For example,
Umar's daughter happens to be Hafsa, right? The wife.
yeah.
So I didn't know because it says Abu Hafs, the father of Hafs.
Yeah.
I don't know the clarity.
Generally, that's generally, yeah, that's the general principle.
Okay.
But you do find names that'll come up where not everybody, even in this case, but not every time you see Abu Fulan, they have a child by that name.
Okay.
And I think a few are going to come. We might call him Abu Muhammad, but he doesn't have any children. And you find people like that, right? Like Imam An-Nawawi, he didn't have any children. Abu Zakaria, his kunya is Abu Zakaria, but he didn't have any children. Man. If I'm not mistaken, Imam An-Nawawi didn't even marry.
What supports that?
To do what? The action of taking a kunya?
Yeah.
Allah. I don't even know if it's religious. Allah, it's even religious. It might just be a practice. Mumkin, Allah. Alam. Any other question? وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
No, Abdullah.
I'm sorry. 40 hadith.